For Niki White, silence isn't a choice, it's survival. Tuner 2026 is a crime thriller that plays like a psychological horror, where sound itself isn't just atmosphere, it's the enemy. It stars Woodall, Dustin Hoffman, Havana Lior, and Lior Raz, and it might be the most uncomfortable movie I've seen so far this year. At the center of Tuner is Niki White, a former piano prodigy whose career was destroyed by Hyperacusis, a condition where everyday sound feels like physical violence. A dropped utensil hits like a gunshot. A crowded room becomes unbearable. He lives behind earplugs and headphones because the wrong noise at the wrong time can literally drop him to his knees. Silence for Niki isn't peace. It's the only way he can function. To survive, he works as a piano tuner in New York City under Harry Horowitz, played by Dustin Hoffman. Harry knew Niki's father, and he became a kind of a surrogate dad, steady, warm, and quietly proud that Niki is still working with music at all. One day, Harry can't remember the combination to his safe. Niki jokes that he'll listen for it, puts his ear to the metal, and realizes he actually can. His hearing is so precise he can feel each tumbler shift. He cracks the safe purely by sound and with the help of YouTube. That little discovery turns his disability into something else, a dangerous talent. It isn't too long before the wrong people notice. During a job at a wealthy client's home, Niki walks in on a security company's crew, who, in fact, are thieves, led by Uri, played by Lior Raz. Niki hears the drilling, and although he realizes what is going on, he just tells them he's working and he needs quiet. Uri tells him they'll leave when the safe is open. So Niki opens the safe just to get rid of them. Then he goes back to tuning the client's piano. On the way out, Uri offers Niki further work, if he wants it. Around this time, the film introduces Uri more fully. Uri owns a private security company working inside wealthy homes and apartment buildings. He notices Niki's auditory sensitivity and careful observational nature almost immediately. Uri starts bringing Niki along for various jobs involving security access, building layouts, and private residences. At first, the jobs appear legitimate, but Niki gradually realizes Uri quietly steals small valuables from the homes he services: cash, jewelry, small collectibles, and personal items. The thefts themselves are minor, but the emotional consequences are not. Wealthy homeowners begin suspecting maids and domestic workers when things disappear. Uri admits as much. Uri minimizes everything constantly. The clients are rich, the items are insignificant, life is unfair already, and nobody really gets hurt. Now at the same time, Niki's starting a tentative relationship with Ruthie, an ambitious young composer played by Havana Lior. She represents a completely different relationship to sound. Not fear, but passion and possibility. So Tuner spends most of his time in two worlds: the quiet, controlled spaces of piano showrooms, practice rooms, and rich clients whose pianos are there mostly for show, and the loud, unpredictable spaces of New York criminal underbelly where Niki has no control over what he hears. As the job escalates and money piles up, the real question isn't just, will he get caught? It's how much more can his body and his conscience take before something breaks. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is a constantly racing mind where every frame tells a story and every story keeps your mind racing. If you like deep dives into crime, horror, sci-fi, and all things geek, consider subscribing and joining our Racing Mind so you don't miss future breakdowns. And if you want to support the channel, you can check out the ACRM merch that features sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, pop culture, and all things geek culture designs. The link is in the description. From here on out, I'm going full spoilers for Tuner. Story turns, specific scenes, and the ending. If you haven't seen the film yet and you want to go in fresh, this is your chance to pause the video, watch Tuner, and come back. It's a great film. Alright, let's talk about what actually happens to Niki and why the story hurt a lot more than I expected. When the movie really begins, Niki is already living in survival mode. He's not the prodigy we hear about in the backstory. He's the version left over after Hyperacusis has torn his life apart. He moves through the world like it's a booby trapped with noise. His one safe place is his job with Harry, tuning pianos, working in mostly controlled environments, letting Harry handle the people and the business side of things. Harry feels like the last piece of the life Niki should have had. Everything shifts the day Harry has a heart attack. Ironically, right after he plays matchmaker and basically forces Niki to carry Ruthie's books and stop hiding from his own life. Harry survives the initial scare and spends at least a week or two in the hospital. Niki visits, tries to keep things light, and outside those visits, his relationship with Ruthie actually starts to grow. When Ruthie can't get a hold of Harry to tune her late grandmother's piano, Niki comes instead. This is where they truly begin their romance. We see them grabbing coffee, talking about music, kissing, hugging, and building something that looks suspiciously like a real future. As Ruthie and Niki's relationship grows, Niki gives Ruthie an antique watch. During their first real encounter, Ruthie mentioned that she's not careful and she lost her grandmother's watch. Niki saw a picture of Ruthie's grandmother wearing it. This gift will come back to haunt them both. Then comes the second gut punch. Harry's wife, Niki's surrogate mother figure, Marla, tells Niki that Harry has massive medical debts and payments toward Harry's work van that Marla can't pay. Without a second thought, Niki knows he owes this man his life. The day Niki opened Harry's safe by ear, the movie quietly shows you both sides of the condition. The curse that ended his concert career and the gift that makes him the perfect safecracker. And then, just when it feels like Niki might actually have a life that's bigger than his fear, he gets the call. He runs through the hospital corridors only to find Harry's bed empty and Marla sitting there with tears in her eyes. No last speech, just a hole Harry leaves behind, massive debt, and memories of a caring man. So when Uri shows up again, offering serious money for more jobs, Niki finally says yes. He tells himself it's just to help Marla, just until the bills are paid, just a temporary compromise. And that's really where the moral erosion starts, because once you've crossed the first line, it gets easier to cross the next one. The turning point is the job with a Korean crime family. Uri's crew, with Niki in tow, has to crack a safe and pull out a single piece of paper, the password to a cryptocurrency wallet. The home is directly in the flight path of the airport, so every few minutes a jet flies over. Betty is sent out to spot for planes. That gives Niki the opportunity to pause, replace his earplugs. Remember, that sound kills him. And he removes his earplugs to listen for the tumblers. Niki listens, dials, opens the safe, and suddenly he's holding the key to almost $18 million. Before they can walk away, the uncle comes home. He pulls a gun, forces Niki to eat the password, and makes it very clear. If Niki dies, the fortune dies with him. Returning to the house, Betty shoots the uncle, killing him, and they escape, but now they're tied to a dead body, and they think that the only copy of the password is stored in Niki's head. Betty shoots the uncle, killing him, and they escape, like I said. From that point on, nobody is entirely sure how much Niki actually remembers. Uri thinks he has the golden goose, but there's just enough doubt to keep everyone on edge. Just to hedge their bets, they take him to a warehouse where there is another heavily protected safe, this one holding backup access codes tied to the same operation. And here's the key detail. Niki does remember enough. Right after he escapes the Korean drug house, he goes home. While recovering from the loud gunshot that went off by his ear, with his laptop, he pulls about $1 million out of the account. He doesn't tell Uri, he doesn't tell Marla, he just stashes it away. So now we're not just dealing with guilt and coercion, we're dealing with real personal greed creeping in. At this point, the stakes stop being a few robberies and becomes everyone around this guy has a reason to either protect him or get rid of him. After not coming to the warehouse the next day, he's with Ruthie and they have an argument and he leaves. When he leaves, Uri, with an air horn, incapacitates and kidnaps Niki. Meanwhile, Ruthie finally gets her shot. She's performing her own piece in front of the legendary composer Marius Meisner. The film lets that performance breathe. It's full, moving piece that feels like an expression of who she is and, in a way, what she and Niki share. The painful part is that Niki doesn't make it back in time. While she's pouring everything she has into that performance, he's still tangled up with Uri and the crypto fallout. Finishing up despite his ear still ringing from the Korean uncle's gunshot near his ear, and Uri practically making him deaf with the air horn, it takes longer than normal to open the safe. At which point, he runs about 18 blocks to get to Ruthie's performance. But he arrives just as she finishes up, and is escorted to meet the master composer. In that meeting, Meisner praises Ruthie and offers her a life-changing opportunity, and then he notices the watch on her wrist. It's the grandmother's watch, paired with his grandfather's, both of which survived the Holocaust and were stolen in the very robbery Niki helped pull off. One object suddenly ties out together: crime, history, and betrayal. Ruthie's biggest professional win is instantly contaminated by Niki's choices. When Niki finally shows up, everything crashes down. Ruthie realizes the watch is stolen. Meisner realizes he's looking at one of the people behind the robbery. Meisner tells Ruthie he is not sure if he can take her on if she's associated with criminals, and she leaves to confront Niki. Niki breaks and tells the truth about Uri, the job, the safe-cracking, all of it. Niki's attempt to explain and apologize is futile, and they essentially break up. Niki goes into the dean's office and pleads his case to Meisner, who agrees not to go to the police if Niki returns his grandfather's watch. So Niki does something incredibly desperate. He breaks into Uri's own safe to steal it back. During a rave party, Niki's ears are damaged and his hyperacusis is diminished. Despite the noise of the party, he is able to crack the safe. But Uri catches him. Up to this point, Uri, Benny, and Yoni have actually liked Niki. Benny especially. They see him as valuable, even as a kind of adopted outsider. But refusing a job is one thing. Stealing from Uri is betrayal. What happens next is where the movie stops feeling like a crime thriller and becomes straight-up auditory horror. They restrain Niki, and Uri takes out an air horn. For a normal person, it would be unbearably loud, but for someone with hyperacusis, this is torture. The film's sound design goes subjective. The blast is distorted, overwhelming, drawn out for longer than feels comfortable. There's no action movie excitement here. It's sustained cruelty. If I were labeling this on screen, I'd literally put sensory overload or sustained cruelty, because the scene is asking you to sit in the kind of agony Niki lives with every day, turned up to 11 and weaponized by someone who knows exactly how to hurt him. Niki explains about Meisner's grandfather's watch inside and tells them what it meant: the Holocaust, the family history, why it has to go back. Benny and Yoni clearly feel something. Uri listens and beats Niki pretty badly anyway. In the process, he ruptures both of Niki's eardrums and slices off part of his ear. The man whose entire life has been defined by hearing too much suddenly has his hearing destroyed in the most brutal way possible. When Niki wakes up in the hospital, the world has changed again. His hyperacusis is gone. He no longer needs earplugs to walk down the street. But that relief comes at a cost. His hearing is permanently damaged. He now is partly deaf. It's not a cure, it's a trade. One kind of suffering swapped for another. And then there's Yuri's final choice. For all the violence, he's not a cartoon monster. He genuinely liked Niki. He feels betrayed, and in his own twisted code, the one thing he could still do is honor that story about the watch and the Holocaust. So he leaves it for Niki. After shattering this guy physically, he still gives him the one object that he needs to put at least part of those things right. In the aftermath, Niki makes a few last decisions. He leaves money in Harry's piano so Marla is actually taken care of now that Harry is dead. It's not clean redemption, but it's something. He brings the watch back to Meisner, who accepts it and walks out, declaring that the tuner is absolved, leaving Niki alone with Ruthie. Whatever they were before, they can't just go back. Too much has happened. Finally, for the first time in years, Niki sits down at the piano. His hearing is different, his life is different, but the instrument isn't his enemy anymore. Harry's favorite song is Tenderly, but he plays it as the prodigy he once was. It's also Niki finally doing the one thing he's been denying himself for years. Instead of dodging pianos and shutting down any chance to play, he lets himself sit, breathe, and actually make music again. All that disappointment and anger about what he lost doesn't disappear. It loosens its grip long enough for something else to come through. The result is an unshowy performance that feels less like a recital and more like a release. In the moment, the film lets the music become the true point of the journey, the final freeing coda to everything he's endured. And when he finishes, he looks at the piano and says, "It needs tuning. The E is flat." It's a small line, but it lands like a thesis statement. The world is out of tune. Niki is out of tune. But maybe, just maybe, he can adjust. None of that works if you don't believe the people at the center. Leo Woodall's performance as Niki sells the entire movie. Early on, he plays Niki like a man made of tension, small flinches, careful movements, always listening for the next sound that might hurt him. After the air horn, there's a noticeable shift. He's quieter, hollowed out. The final piano scene doesn't read as triumphant. It feels like somebody is testing whether there's anything left in them that still wants to play. What makes the script work overall is its restraint. It never over-explains Niki's psychology. Instead, it trusts the audience to read the sadness in his expressions, the silence in his conversations, and the growing emotional distance between his intentions and his actions. Leo Woodall has quickly emerged as one of the more emotionally grounded young actors working today, building a career around characters who carry vulnerability beneath outward charm and restraint. After gaining wider attention through projects like The White Lotus and the romantic drama One Day, Woodall continues that trajectory in Tuner with a performance driven less by dramatic outbursts and more by silence, observation, and emotional weight. As Niki White, Woodall carries much of the film internally. Niki often looks emotionally disconnected from the world around him, but Woodall never plays him as cold. Instead, he feels overwhelmed by his own sensitivity, constantly processing more than he knows how to express. Now, that quiet tension becomes essential to the film because Niki's moral conflict is visible long before he openly acknowledges it himself. Dustin Hoffman's Harry is the emotional anchor. He's warm and a little scattered, but you can see how much he genuinely cares for Niki. Dustin Hoffman brings a quiet emotional gravity to Tuner that anchors much of the film's humanity. As Harry, Hoffman avoids playing the character as overly sentimental or fragile. Instead, he feels lived in, warm, stubborn, and deeply familiar with the rhythms of ordinary struggle. Harry is not simply Niki's mentor in piano tuning. He becomes a surrogate father figure, an emotional compass, and one of the few people who can pull Niki out of his isolation. And what makes Hoffman's performance so effective is its restraint. Harry's kindness never feels performative, which makes the emotional fallout from his heart attack hit much harder. The film quietly positions Harry as the emotional center of Niki's world. So when his health collapses, the entire moral structure around Niki begins to fracture alongside it. Hoffman's long career also adds an additional layer to the role. Known for emotionally immersive performances in films like Midnight Cowboy, Kramer vs. Kramer, Rain Man, and All the President's Men, Hoffman has spent decades portraying deeply human characters struggling against systems larger than themselves. In Tuner, he brings that same grounded realism to Harry, helping the relationship between Harry and Niki feel authentic rather than symbolic. His performance never asks for attention, but its warmth and emotional sincerity are essential to why Niki's later compromises feel tragic rather than simply criminal. Havana Rose Leo gives Ruthie more dimension than the girlfriend. She has her own ambitions, her own relationship with sound, and her full performance scene feels like a statement of who she is. That's what makes the watch twist so brutal. The thing that should be her big career breakthrough gets tainted by the crime she didn't choose. Havana Rose Liu continues building a strong reputation for emotionally natural performances with Tuner, bringing warmth and grounded humanity to Ruthie. After standout appearances in films like Bottoms and No Exit, Liu has developed a screen presence that feels effortless and emotionally open, which becomes an important counterbalance to the tension and isolation surrounding Niki throughout the film. Now, as Ruthie, Leo avoids turning the character into a conventional romantic subplot. Instead, she represents spontaneity, emotional honesty, and the possibility of a more normal life outside of Niki's increasingly fractured internal world. Their chemistry works because Liu approaches the relationship with curiosity and patience rather than melodrama, slowly pulling Niki out of the emotional distance he hides behind. And then there's Uri. Lior Raz plays him as dangerous, absolutely capable of monstrous violence, but not soulless. You can see he likes Niki. You can see the betrayal land when Niki breaks into the safe. That's what makes the final gesture, returning the watch after ruining Niki's hearing, so unsettling. It's not redemption, but it's a reminder that he operates by a code, however warped. Benny and Yoni round that out. You can feel their discomfort in the watch scene. They're not blank henchmen. They're guys who know exactly how far things have gone and aren't entirely okay with it. Best known internationally as the co-creator and star of Fauda, Raz has built much of his career around morally gray characters operating inside systems of pressure, compromise, and survival. That background becomes a perfect fit for Tuner because Uri never feels like a traditional thriller villain or flashy criminal mastermind. Instead, Raz plays him with emotional restraint and casual confidence, the kind of person who normalizes unethical behavior simply by treating it as ordinary. Uri rarely pressures Niki aggressively. He reframes theft as practical, survivable, and minor, which makes Niki's moral compromise feel dangerously understandable. Raz's performance works because he understands how to portray people who cross ethical lines long ago and no longer emotionally react to them. That calm realism creates a strong contrast with Lior Woodall's emotionally conflicted Niki. While Niki internalizes guilt and overthinks every compromise, Uri moves through the world with detached certainty of someone who already rationalized his own morality years ago. Daniel Roher and screenwriter Robert Ramsey make a lot of smart choices. Daniel Roher is best known for emotionally intense documentary filmmaking, especially after directing Nalvani, but Tuner feels like a deliberate shift into narrative storytelling without abandoning the human intimacy that defined his earlier work. Instead of approaching the film like a traditional crime thriller, Roher directs it almost like a character study disguised as one. The tension is quiet, personal, and psychological. Every hallway creak, piano note, and awkward silence feels intentional. And working with Roher is screenwriter Robert Ramsey, who is known for character-focused thrillers and emotionally driven genres for storytelling, whose writing often blends crime, psychological tension, and moral ambiguity while keeping the emotional lives of the characters at the center of the story. With Tuner, Ramsey helps shape a quieter kind of thriller, one more interested in guilt, rationalization, and personal erosion than sensationalism or large-scale criminal escalation. The screenplay's focus on emotional restraint and internal conflict fits naturally alongside Daniel Rohrer's intimate directing style. And what stands out most is how Roher uses sound to place us inside Niki's emotional state. The film rarely treats his perfect pitch like a gimmick or cinematic superpower. Instead, it becomes a form of isolation. Niki hears too much, notices too much, and as the moral compromises begin stacking up around him, the sound design almost starts functioning like emotional pressure building inside his head. Roher also avoids turning the film into a flashy crime escalation story. The thefts themselves are small and almost mundane. What matters is the emotional erosion underneath them. The film becomes less interested in whether Niki succeeds and more interested in how rationalization slowly changes a person over time. That restraint gives Turner a very different energy than most modern thrillers. It feels sadder, quieter, and more human. One of the smartest choices in Tuner is the screenplay's refusal to treat Niki like a conventional criminal protagonist. The writing constantly frames his moral decline through obligation, guilt, and emotional exhaustion, rather than greed or excitement. Niki does not cross one giant line. He negotiates himself into a compromise piece by piece. Where the film really stands out is the sound design. Tuner doesn't treat Niki's hearing as a cool gimmick. It treats it as isolation and vulnerability. We hear distorted noises when he's overwhelmed. We sit in oppressive near silence when he's trying to cope. We get those sudden spikes, door slamming sirens, the air horn, that push the movie right up to the edge of horror. It's not full-on sensory assault like some experimental horror films, but whenever the movie wants you to feel Niki's fear or pain, it does it with sound first. The air horn sequence is the obvious example, but even smaller moments like the emptiness of Harry's hospital room or the clean, bright sound of Ruthie's performance before the watch twist are doing a ton of emotional work. Visually, Roher mirrors that. Early scenes feel composed and controlled, piano rooms, tidy apartments. As Niki slips deeper into Uri's world, the spaces get louder, messier, and more hostile. The camera stays close to Niki, like it's trapped with him in these environments. He can't turn down the volume. Since my non-spoiler review, critically, Tuner has been landing very well with reviewers, and honestly, my reaction wasn't all that different. The film currently sits at a strong 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, with Metacritic comes in at a respectable 72 out of 100. IMDb users currently have it around 7.4 out of 10, and early audience reactions on Letterboxd have been largely positive as well. Those numbers tell an interesting story. Most critics seem to agree that Tuner is well made, atmospheric, emotionally effective, and anchored by a terrific performance from Lior Woodall, where opinions vary in what people expected going in. If you walk in expecting a traditional heist thriller, the film may feel slower and more restrained than anticipated. But if you approach it as a psychological drama about guilt, loyalty, and moral compromise, Tuner becomes a much richer experience. That's ultimately where I landed. The crime elements are there, but what stayed with me was the emotional cost of the choices these characters make. What makes Tuner linger for me isn't just the premise. It's that the movie is willing to end somewhere messy. Niki doesn't get revenge on Uri. He doesn't reclaim his old life. His hearing isn't magically restored. The best the film can offer him is a damaged, complicated existence where he can sit at a piano again and decide on his own terms whether to play. Another thing about Niki for me was he kind of reminded me of Jimmy Stewart type. That silly smile and just kind of hanging around there. The sound design has also become one of the film's defining talking points. Rather than using sound purely for suspense, the film turns listening itself into a source of emotional pressure and psychological tension. My wife and I were pretty much on the edge of our seats throughout the whole film. Daniel Rohrer's directing has also received strong praise, particularly for avoiding the excesses of conventional thrillers. I think that goes back to all the documentary stuff he did. And once again, that final, the E is flat line is a great line, and it seems like I said, the film's thesis, it kind of wraps everything up. Things are broken, people are compromised, but there is still the possibility of adjustment, of slowly bringing things back into some kind of harmony. In a genre that usually defaults to either total doom or big cathartic victory, that kind of quiet, bittersweet ending feels refreshingly honest. And as we were walking out of the theater, my wife and I were completely blown away. We were not sure what to expect, and we were very happy with what we got. At one point, we were thinking this is more like a crime 101 type of film, you know? But it's more psychological, it's more visceral, and more emotional, and more gray. And that's something that really affected both of us. We both felt like this was a very human film. So if you go in expecting action, you won't get that. Instead, you'll get something quieter. If you go in expecting horror, you'll get a more insidious kind of horror. Unlike Undertone, a true auditory psychological horror film, Tuner is ultimately about control over your life, your choices, and your own senses. And what happens when all three start slipping at the same time? AMC Theaters has a Mystery Movie Monday where you can see a film, but you only find out what it is when you get there. We went in with no idea what we would see, and we were very pleasantly surprised by Tuner. This is a good film. The story is compelling and the characters are interesting because they're not black and white. They, like the rest of us, live in that gray area that we can rationalize our motivations. The production value is top-notch. All the actors are top-notch. Dustin Hoffman, as the emotional anchor, keeps us invested in our protagonist, Lior Woodall. And Lior Raz is a great antagonist, as he too is not initially too evil. He exists somewhere in the middle, but leaning more criminal than not. And Havana Rose Liu gives Niki a reason to keep his life moving and a reason for existing beyond Harry and Marla. Tuner is a 4 for just being a good movie that deserves your time and a praise. If you want more deep dives into psychological thrillers, auditory horror, and films that blur genre lines, let me know in the comments below. And check out the ACRM merch store, link in the description, for horror, sci-fi, and geek culture apparel. Comment below. What's your favorite sensory horror film? Was it Undertone? And if you haven't already, check out my Backrooms reviews. Thanks for watching. If this breakdown fed your geek soul, hit subscribe and join the racing mind. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and take care.